What is up? Welcome to a very windy Torres del Paine. We're not exactly in Torres del Paine yet, but it's just there. Today's episode is going to be probably a bit of a long one. I'm just gonna do a video from the entire time we're here, which is 4 full days. So here's hoping for some good weather, some good light, and some photos. Let's go. Patagonia. It's such a trip to be back here after 4 years away. A lot has stayed the same. For example, it was sunny a minute ago. Now, we can't even see the mountains. Okay, we struck out on day one. It was really nice light when we got here, and then out of nowhere, it just got really miserable, and it was miserable all night. Woke up this morning, it was snowy, we thought it was gonna be miserable, and then out of nowhere, just outside the hotel, this happened. The light is just coming out, the mountains are showing, but we're not exactly in the perfect spot. The trail up to the Laguna is closed for high wind, and yeah, this isn't exactly ideal for the reason that in Torres del Paine, you're not allowed to go off trail. And there's a really beautiful image if you just go a little bit off trail to the edge of the cliff and shoot this way. You get the island, you get the peaks, it's all perfectly balanced, but they're really being protective of the landscape here, which is fine, but it just means that you can't really get the great photos. So I'm struggling a bit. I'm right on the edge of the trail, reaching in, kind of getting my camera low to hide this parking lot that's down below, and then not getting the whole island in my frame, but just the lodge, the peaks off to the right, the bridge, the beautiful blue water, and the light. Right now I'm at F11, 2.5 seconds, and I've got a 2-stop grad ND, and it's not perfect. I wish I was back there and off the trail, but I'm trying to be respectful of the rules. If you're wondering, the rules are enforced. In fact, I heard of a photographer catching a hefty fine this year for being slightly off trail. I wish I was a little bit more off trail to help this composition too, but it's okay considering. And just like that, it's gone again. The rest of the day we stayed stuck under fog, but by the afternoon, much of the cloud was finding itself trapped behind the massif. So we bumped our way along the washboard roads of Torres del Paine for Salto Grande. Then, hiked towards a classic view of these incredible peaks. Okay, so we made it to Mirador Cuernos, and I have a mini rant about Torres del Paine in the past 4 years. One, they're doing a very, very good job of preservation of nature. You're not allowed to leave the paths here, you have to stick on the trails, and they're really strictly enforcing it. But they're going really, in my opinion, way too far. And there's not enough trails, there's not enough places for people to go. And so people are just going off the trails. They're going off the trails, they're going to places that make good photos. They're wandering into nature and destroying things just because they don't have any options. This beach is photography paradise. Photographers have been coming here since the beginning of photography, and it's a beach. Being on this beach doesn't harm nature, in my opinion, whatsoever. But even this beach, they've decided to limit where people can go to this tiny little square section there. That's maybe 25 meters of beach. That's it. So of course, when you put such tight restrictions on people in nature and ones that don't make sense, they're gonna start breaking the rules. They're gonna start going off trail, and they're gonna start, doing things that destroy nature. Obviously, the rules are put in place to protect nature, so it's kind of counterintuitive, and I really, really wish they would at least be a little bit more sensible, or at least create more options and more trails that people could go to. You create trails, it'll create a tiny little bit of like impact, but if you don't create trails, people will impact everything. So rant's over. We're here at sunset. Sunset here isn't usually great because the sun sets behind Paine Grande, but I've taken my crew here to kind of like location scout it, then we'll come back at sunrise. But it's a pretty cool spot to photograph, I just wish it wasn't limited. My rant about the lack of infrastructure in Torres del Paine could go on for days. So instead, here's a couple photos I took at sunset. The light was okay, so we headed to our hotel happy. And in the morning, we woke up to Patagonia in all its perfect glory. We're back at it at sunrise, and we've come to the Aventura Hotel and have this awesome, perfectly still morning. There's zero wind, and I'll probably jinx it by saying that. And we've got really nice reflections in the little leg of the lake here that the Cuernos is sitting in. So you've got Cuernos over here, you've got the island over to the left, and then you've got Paine Grande there. And it all just comes together really, really nicely with a big, wide, probably 16 by 9, maybe pano crop image. The light was really, really red and beautiful about 5-10 minutes ago, and that's already 40 minutes before sunrise. Sunrise is still 30 minutes away. We're gonna sit it out and wait to see what happens with sunrise, but with not a lot of cloud in the sky, maybe we'll get some alpenglow, but I honestly think the best photo already happened. Yeah, the best light already happened. I noticed this happens a lot in the mountains. It's often not sunrise that gets the best light, but nearly an hour before. You get this amazing light that just bounces in colors of red, purple, and blue. The light at sunrise was average in comparison, but the epicness of the pre-morning glow was superb. After some relaxation at the lodge, we headed out towards Lago Grey, where the wind was howling so heavily I could hardly hold my camera stable. So we are now at Lago Grey, and we're hiking across the flats out to the island and the viewpoint. And I just want to add to my rant from yesterday. We found out this morning that actually all the trails are now closed from sunset to sunrise, meaning the trails are only open in daylight hours. Meaning if you want to get to a location to do photography at sunrise, it's impossible because you're not allowed to go on the trails at sunrise. So Mirador, Cuernos, where I used to take people all the time to go see sunrise, you can't do it anymore because you're not allowed to be on that trail at sunrise. So very, very restrictive now at Torres del Paine, I have to be honest with you, and I'm kind of surprised. Very limited in where you can go to take pictures, and I'm all for the limitations and the protection of nature. Don't get me wrong, I'm all for it. But I do think that if you restrict people too much, they just start breaking the rules all over the place, and then you have even worse damage. So I think they need to figure things out a little bit here. How bad is it? Honestly, I'm not sure I can justify spending more than 2 days here now. It used to be that I'd spend 5-6 days happily. But for such a massive area, there's hardly anywhere you can go anymore. We made it to the end, and I'm hiding behind a tree because it's so windy out there, you can't almost breathe. It's like it just sucks the air out of you, it's so windy. So we're definitely not staying here for sunset. We're gonna walk around the back side of the island and, I don't know, maybe see if there's something different to photograph. Torres del Paine is about Paine Grande, that big peak there, and the Cuernos, that's usually what you photograph, but who knows, maybe we'll find something else on the backside here. So in the end, we found a photo down here, and sorry about the wind. It's not an ideal photo though, and it's a lesson in balance. You have Paine Grande there, and it's such a dominant peak that you can't really take a frame that isn't Paine Grande right in the middle of the photo. So you have two options. You can build a composition that stacks upward with it right in the middle of the frame, or if you want to include the Cuernos off to the side, you kind of have to cut off a bit of Paine Grande. Otherwise, the image is way too heavily weighted to the left. Think of it like a balancing scale. I have a piece of driftwood in the front of my frame, and I could use that to balance it. Paine Grande in the top left, for example, the driftwood in the bottom right. But even then, I just feel like it's way too heavy. So, like I said, what I've done is I've got the driftwood right almost in the middle of the frame, Paine Grande in the left, but I don't have the whole mountain. I've kind of cut it off a bit and pushed it to the edge of the frame. And I'm using the Cuernos almost more in the middle of the frame. And I feel like that balances it out a little bit, but it definitely is a lesson in balance, as is just trying to stand up in this wind.
Here's what I'm talking about. The first photo, I offset the driftwood, and you can see that I had to cut off part of the mountain to balance it right. In the end, I also decided to simplify things by putting Paine Grande in the middle of the frame with the driftwood balanced directly below it.
Okay, I don't know how well you'll be able to see me because it's still fairly dark, but we're down at kind of the reflection pools in front of the Aventura Hotel. And the wind's up a little bit, so there isn't perfect reflections, but it's kind of teasing some reflections. And I'm struggling a little bit with composition because I feel like I want to do everything vertical. I feel like images come together so much better vertical. You have a foreground anchor and then something in the midground, and then it stacks on the top with the background. When you go wide, it feels like there's all this dead space everywhere unless there's enough going on in the frame. So I'm at a vertical frame, which risks making these huge mountains look tiny, but it is the composition that seems to be working the best. It's still dark, so we're kind of still waiting on the light, but right now I'm at ISO 200, 30 seconds, f11, and right now it looks a little bit like this.
I like it. And it's another reason not to trust the image on the back of your camera. The LCD minimizes the detail of the frame. Blown up, this will look awesome. And then we came down here for perfect reflections, and the wind was a little bit too much for that. There still was an image with pseudo reflections I really liked.
With so many restrictions in the park, we decided to location scout, try to find something new at sunset. We've come to this waterfall, so sorry about the noise. It's a pretty cool spot, but it's so far away from the peaks that it just makes the peaks look so small. So it's one of those like really close to good photo locations. And the waterfall's awesome, the views are awesome, but sometimes an awesome view doesn't make an awesome photograph. Now, on the way to the waterfall, I spotted a little trail down to the river where you have the Torres in the background. So I stopped at the side of the road, we've pulled off and we've walked down this trail, and it's a little bit late, like we're already running out of time, but I'm trying to see if there's an angle of this river leading up to the Torres. It's so far not looking ideal, but maybe this will be awesome.
I actually liked what I found. In fact, I think this spot might be worth returning on a future trip to Torres del Paine, and photographed at sunrise instead of sunset. The following morning though, we headed back to our perfect reflections to try to perfect our photos.
Okay, we are back at the... We're back in the... I'm definitely getting old. That was a real challenge. We are back at the reflections again this morning, and it is reflecting this morning, but there's no clouds at all. So we've been really, really lucky with the weather on this trip in general. Just every day has been really nice. Wish we had a little bit more cloud, but I think at the reflection it doesn't matter as much because you have a lot of stuff going on in the bottom of the frame. In the middle of the frame is so filled that a sky would be nice, but it's not necessary either. So I'm kind of messing around with some of these rocks in the foreground. The reason being that I don't want the reflection to be too perfect, and I want something to anchor the eye. So I've got a rock right here in the foreground, a couple other ones scattered off to the side, and then I'm at about 22 millimeters, f16 and 13 seconds. The settings won't stay that way. As the sun comes up, it gets bright really fast. So I'm going to try to aim to have about 4 seconds eventually. I might have to throw on a 3-stop ND, and I do have a 2-stop medium grad on the top. And yeah, hopefully this turns out. I think we're definitely going to get some alpenglow here, so I'm probably just going to wait for that.
Let me share with you the 3 stages of photographing mountains in the morning. First, it was purple with some stars still piercing through. Then, there was this beautiful soft light and subtle glow on the peaks. Finally, the sunrise bathed the peaks. Which was your favorite? Personally, I think I like the second.
That was a pretty awesome time in Torres del Paine National Park. Yes, the restrictions kind of suck. The limited amount of places you can go to photograph things without doing a massive hike kind of sucks, but the location doesn't suck. You can still go to places like here at the Aventura, and you can still go almost anywhere at sunset, so still lots to photograph, and the weather was absolutely awesome for us. And I think some photos came out as well, so El Chelten next. So I'll see you guys there. Peace.